And what is this called again, Jeff?
Viognier.
Viognier.
Viognier is the grape varietal. Okay, and California is making some great Viogniers right now. You can find them in all different price ranges. Viogniers can range from as little as $6 or $7 a bottle, all the way up to probably in the 30s, 40s, $50 a bottle range.
And you just said something, I was going to ask you a question on it that you hit on as far as price. And you know, everyone talks about, you know, $3 chuck and getting a good glass of a bottle of wine. So will that determine the difference in taste also?
Price can certainly be one determination, but it's definitely not the only determination. Like I kind of mentioned earlier, what you need to do is you need to learn that by looking for certain styles, certain areas of the world, you're going to find good values in wine that are going to give you a lot of good flavor for your dollar by moving outside of the traditional California and French areas. Okay. Although this is from a small producer, he keeps his prices low. This particular Viognier runs right around $15 a bottle.
15?
15 a bottle,
Okay.
Retail. Yeah.
Okay. Now, Jeff, when I see people chew the wine and do that slurping thing with it, what is that all about?
What they're doing is they're drawing air into their mouth through the wine to try and sort of invigorate the flavors and get a little bit more of the taste out of it.
Okay. Now, do you want to do that with every sip you take, or is that the
No,
initial?
I just do that initially just to sort of get it. No, I'm much more. It's much better just to, as long as you do want to taste wines these days when they're opened. If you're in a restaurant, you want to make a taste because there is specialty wines that come with a cork. They can be what they call them corked wines, and that's wine that has gone bad because due to either an infection of the cork itself can get infected and get into the wine,
okay,
or the cork can dry out and air can get into the wine and turn the wine. So there are a couple different sort of chemical things that can happen to the wine with a cork. It's much rarer with the Stelvin or the twist cap. It is much rarer that you'll have any of those problems. It can still happen, but it would be much harder, and it would happen from a wine that would be in the barrel, because you can also get this chemical change, this chemical imbalance from a bad barrel. A barrel will
really
have a sort of an infection. They're kind of like a living organ. People say barrels are a living organ because they do change.
Okay. They expand and that.
Well, they expand, but they soak up wine. There are lots of things going on chemically that happens to with the interaction between the wood of the barrel and the wine itself.
Okay, interesting. My poor producer, Cammie, Cammie, did you have a question? You wanted to know about a sweet wine.
What type of wines? Oh, sweet wines.
Yeah,
Okay.
we went over that with the last one that we had, right?
Yeah, Rieslings would be a good choice for you, and you look, and also I would suggest looking at some of the German Rieslings as well. That you'll find in the German wines, you'll find that you can find a lot of wines to your liking, and almost all German white wines are Rieslings. The majority of German white wines are going to be Rieslings.
Then I have to try that.
So.
So that's going to be the wine for you, the Riesling.
Okay.
All right, so I'm taking a bite of my cracker to cleanse my palate.
Now, can you see what we were talking about, sort of having this with food, how it would change maybe your perspective on the wine itself?
Absolutely, and now it's going to be, you know, when I go, I kind of know what to ask for. And I've always thought I was a white wine person because I figured it's lighter, and I'm not, you know, a big wine drinker, so I wanted to keep it light. But I do like a Merlot every now and then, but I think I'm going to stick with a white.
And again, this has some flavors of Chardonnay in it, some flavors of Sauvignon Blanc. Chardonnays, when you go out to a restaurant, Chardonnays will probably be one of the more expensive. If you're going to be ordering by the glass, Chardonnays will be one of the more expensive wines by the glass. Followed by Sauvignon Blanc. Viognier should fall somewhere in the middle if they have it on their list. Not all restaurants are going to keep a Viognier on their list.
And that's a good point. I was going to ask too, do most restaurants have all the varieties? Or
It really depends. In Los Angeles, you can find lots and lots of restaurants that have an excellent selection of wines and will have a good amount of varieties, and I'm sure will carry Viogniers on their list. Anyone with a decent wine list in Los Angeles will definitely have one or two Viogniers on the list. do, I bring my own bottle.
And you can do that.
You can do that.
Oh, that's so good to know.
You
Did
just
you
call,
know that,
I
Cammy?
did not.
You just call them and ask them, do they have a corkage charge? And most of them will, and I think that's totally, that's totally fair, because the corkage, I've paid as little as $2 for a corkage charge, and as high as $35 and $40 based on the restaurant itself.
And what does that mean, that they uncork
You
it?
bring the closed, you have to bring a closed bottle, of course.
Right,
You
right.
can't bring an open bottle, you bring a closed bottle of wine, and it's the fee that they charge you to open the wine, but basically what it is it's the fee that they're getting, since you're not buying or using
Right.
their product, they're entitled to some compensation for you bringing your own bottle in.
I love that.
And you know,
That's good to know.
a bottle, for example, this bottle of Viognier, which you can buy for $12 to $15 in the store, would probably be selling for $30 to $40 in the restaurant.
Wow.
So again, depending on the restaurant, but as a general rule, most restaurants will be 3 to 4 times the retail price of the bottle.
I think that's such a great suggestion, especially if you know you love this wine, you love the taste, you know what you love, what it pairs well with, and you say, we're going out to an Italian restaurant, or we're going to go have seafood, I have the perfect wine.
Right.
Let's bring it with you.
And if you know the menu, that's
Love
even.
that, Jeff.
If you know the menu, that's even better, because
Yeah.
depending when the two examples you just gave are per seafood and Italian, you pretty much know the flavor profiles that the restaurant's going to be offering, so
Yeah.
you can gauge what type of wine to bring. But if you go to a restaurant that's offering lots of different options, you know, other than those, then you kind of want to think about, well, do I want a white, do I want a red? A lot of times if we go out with more than 4 people, we bring in 2 bottles. anyways.
Right. And you can go online to that restaurant, see their menu, and
And I would always suggest calling first and asking what their policy is, just so you're not surprised that it's $35. If it's a $35 corkage charge, you might want to rethink bringing the bottle and pick something off the list.
Okay.
If it's a $2, $5, $10 corkage charge, then you're in perfect shape for bringing your own bottle.
So call ahead and find out what their corkage charge is.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, if I can shout out to Beat Cafe Vizu, which there's one in Santa Monica, I believe one in Pasadena and one in the Valley. They're ones that just charge $2 corkage, and they have an excellent menu.
Okay.
Just great.
Awesome, there you go. So, let's take another question.
Sure.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's see. Someone wants to know, Jeff, what's the most you've ever paid for a bottle of wine?
Well, that's a difficult question for
And that's
me.
from Ann out of Laguna Niguel. Thanks,
right.
Ann, for listening.
It's kind of a difficult question. Being in the wine industry, I kind of sometimes work on a different scale than other people might, because I'm often in the ability to trade or be given wines for tasting and sampling and things like that. So a lot of times I will end up stocking my cellar with either wines that I sell, wines that I know, things along those lines. But I would say probably $125 is probably the most that I've personally paid for a wine,
Wow.
which is not that much these days, honestly.
Really?
For the high-end wines nowadays, they can escalate into the hundreds and hundreds of dollars a bottle.
Wow,
So-
125, okay. All right. And Heather,
Well, let me go back to, before we get away from that, let me go
Okay.
back to, what I do prefer is I really like, my target area that I like to buy wines in is really that $10 to $30 range.
okay.
That's where I think you can find exceptional tasting wines in that range that are excellent quality. So in almost all regions of the world, from
Okay.
almost all regions of the world.
All right, that's good to know. Thank you.
So,
And we have another question from Heather out of Louisiana, wants to know, where do you go to get wine? But you kind of answered that as far as being a distributor.
yeah, but Total Wine, like I mentioned before, which is all over
Right.
the country, they're good. I've bought my wine at Costco. Costco has great prices on wine, and they do a pretty good job of making good selections at Costco. I used to buy a lot of wine at Trader Joe's, but I really don't anymore. I find myself very rare that I buy wine at Trader Joe's. The wines I do find myself buying there would be something like sparkling wine occasionally, ports. Those are primarily the ones that I would go to Trader Joe's for.
And are ports a sweet dessert wine?
Ports are a sweet dessert wine. They're actually what they're classified as a fortified wine. What that means is that they make a wine and then they add a clear distilled brandy, basically neutral brandy, to the wine to boost the alcohol level. But I think ports are just an awesome after dinner little sipping wine. You don't pour a lot. You give yourself, you know, maybe an ounce, ounce and a half pour, and it's great to sit around and sip afterwards.
Is that where you have it in those
No.
big glasses?
No, it's not actually.
No?
No, we don't use brandy sniffers
Oh, okay.
for those. Actually, when I have a port, I actually will use a little bit of a smaller glass. You don't want as much room as like you would in a standard glass. You want
Okay.
a little smaller glass for that. So
Okay.
you don't necessarily need to bring with a port. You don't necessarily need to bring a lot of air into the wine. So
Okay.
when you're tasting it,
All right,
and
awesome.
ports tend to last a lot more because of that infused brandy. Ports will last a lot longer. You can open a bottle of port and you can actually probably push it close to a month, as long as you put a cork or something on top of it, because of the brandy in there, it will hold the flavor and hold the wine a lot longer.
Now, speaking of lasting wine, and poor Jack and his 78 Zinfandel, how about storing the wine, Jeff? How should people store their wines?
You want to keep them in a cool place.
Okay.
Ideally, the perfect storage is a temperaturely controlled, either wine refrigerator, wine storage unit, which keeps it at usually between 56 and 62 degrees. Okay. Laying on their side. You do not want to use an old. Some people say, well, why don't I just take an old refrigerator I have, you know, and turn it up to its highest setting, so to speak, and and lay my wines in there. The problem you have with that is that the humidity is not controlled well enough, and that the vibration usually of the compressor on refrigerators can tend to unsettle the wine a little bit.
Okay. And
Now
again, you said on its side.
Definitely on its side. So even wines that you're just storing at home, you want to keep them on their side. You want to keep them on their side or upside down. You want to keep the cork wet.
I see.
Okay, because if you leave them standing up all the time, the cork can dry out, and then that can cause problems. You want to keep them away from heaters. You want to keep them in the coolest place you can in the house.
Okay. All right. That definitely makes sense. Sideways. Sideways. Okay.